Okay, I'm delighted to see the room filling up, and I'm welcoming everybody to the November 11th, 2021 installment of the David Shove Memorial Midstream Reading Series. And here we are gathered again virtually, happy to do so, to hear three outstanding writer-readers, Mary Moore Easter, Patrick Cabello Hansel, and Patricia Barone. Our Zoom host is Paul Mattis. I'm Mimi Jennings, and I greet you from my home in St. Paul. Housekeeping. I will introduce each reader who will read for 15 minutes. Audience, please, we prefer keeping the videos on and using visual applause and icons for the noise we would otherwise make if we were in person. Please use the chat. Right now, there are messages in the chat. You can use the chat for your own comments and to read what our artists have posted there. You can save the chat by clicking on its three dots. After the readings, please join us. Usually there's a small Q&A at the end. We can do some congratulating. As David did, I begin with some selected poems. First, a very early poem of Ethna McKiernan's. Ethna might have read tonight, but now sadly is bedbound. We send greetings and well wishes to you, Ethna. Homage to the common. How I love the blazing dailiness of this world. The way my shoes wear down their heels in the same spot each year. The gene print of freckles on my children's cheeks. The plain truth that dust balls breed, regardless. The unmade beds and other signs of absent domesticity. The late night hum of the furnace, pumping out its heat. Even the knots in my shoulders, I've known since childhood. I celebrate alike the lumpy August lawn, awash with acorns, and the first new snow, which tempers any memory of wrong. My aging Ford Escort and the slush that city buses sling across its windshield. The pageantry of light each morning from the east. Strong coffee halved by cream. That in these last late years of the 20th century, this planet keeps on spinning toward some destiny beyond our knowing. And as always, how utterly my friends astonish me with their simple, ordinary faith and care for this or that, for the common grace of it all, the way the earth's relentless, lovely roots pull us deeper in. I offer blessings, praise, amazement. That from Ethna McKiernan, and I add two of my own. They're coming out in the December St. Anthony Park Bugle. The first, playful, Mind for Sound. I know where the word hymn comes from. The hum, the thrum in my chest, a song, an air, an anthem, noble, like honor, like prayer. And I get slut, lust, the thrust of them, brash, trust their muscle, their cheek. They share a phoneme with love. Grumble is easy, a base animal rumbling, not so low, back of the teeth. Drum, growl, a cheer counterbalance, useful for truth. I know where we get whisper and sigh, soft, expressive breezes, ineffable. Shh, listen yourself. More verses unnecessary. And the second, mysterious, from words of a Buddhist poet, after Thich Nhat Hanh's breathing. Breathing in, I see myself a flower, dewdrop fresh. Breathing out, my eyes become flowers. Breathing in, I am gracious. Breathing out, I am imperturbable, a mountain. Waves of emotion do not carry me away. Like water that faithfully reflects the sky, a full moon in my heart, I breathe in. I have become boundless. I have no luggage. Please look at me breathing out with the eyes of love. Let me introduce, thank you. Let me introduce Mary Easter, Mary Moore Easter, a 2020 recipient of an Artist Initiative grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board, the author of 4 poetry books, Free Papers, poems inspired by the testimony of Eliza Winston, a Mississippi slave freed in Minnesota in 1860, published in 2021. The Body of the World, a 2019 finalist for the Minnesota Book Award in Poetry. And Walking from Origins and From the Flutes of Our Bones, both 2020. Originally from Petersburg, Virginia, she pursued a long dance career in Minnesota as an independent dancer, choreographer, and founder and director of Carleton College's dance program. Mary.
Thank you, Mimi. And good evening and welcome, Midstream audience. I am happy to join this group of writers tonight, and especially happy to be hosted here by my friend and poet, Mimi Jennings. I welcome the risk of being labeled a poet of critical race theory. As you know, the term critical race theory is an accusation that forbids telling a history that damages the prized narrative of American glory. The first poem I'm going to read is ekphrastic evidence in reference to a photograph. 2 voices speak these lines. What's left? He knew me by my feet, dragged me from the pyre, scalp in flames, neck not yet char. These ropes of tendons grew to hold my head onto my shoulders, hardened after all this ooze and sting. I lean what's left on the bounty of his back, my forehead, nose, eyelashes still, a shield on the shield of his back, his dappled map burnt clean of brown in islands of pink flesh, his spine stacked kindling green at heart, curved column reaching up. I lean into this home retrieved in breath. I knew her by those feet, those unbaked bricks that bore her over field and furrow, woods and cricks, that once slapped dust and whirled beneath rough sack and satin thigh. The flame pushed back as I pulled her out, head alight behind, face a moon looking up from eyes gone milk white with the terror. Close your eyes, hide beneath your lids. Let lashes sweep the ash from the plains of your cheeks. I am pretending not to hear the long scream, split in human voices, high and mid and low, the choral harmony backed by bellows shudder in the beating flames. I turn my tongue from healing serum, months of drip and scab. I refuse the refuse of each scar's body. Choose instead the welcome of this ruined home. An addendum, where is this? You choose. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Rosewood, Florida, 1923. Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. Memphis, Tennessee, 1860. From my new chapbook, Free Papers, poems inspired by the testimony of Eliza Winston, a Mississippi slave escaped to freedom in Minnesota in 1860. This poem, What Comes Now? Lord, I'm out here on your word, a plea. Each time she was set to hide in the wood, waiting for rescue to find her. Lord, I'm out here on your word, a reminder of promises, a compact for faith met with courage inside risk, words forced from her lips by uncertainty, borrowed from others who looked for hope in despair while she bided her time alone. No way she knew to say, I celebrate myself, and yet she did. She could not say what hadn't been written yet. Come celebrate with me, that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. She took her one hand holding tight her other hand and set out, not without regret, in clear pursuit of what most thought she couldn't win and didn't deserve to get. Hers was the year Clotilda, the last slave ship, sneaked into anchor and was set afire to hide the crime, disgorging 100 Africans onto land where they met the very bondage she would not accept. She could not see 6 months ahead, a nation split, half willing to forget the principles that bound them, half standing up to pay a debt to stolen men and women. She did not know the details of the world that swirled around her world. She took off anyway, on the roiling surface of the wet river, her deeds stretching out in unseen time and place. After Eliza's escape and the subsequent outrage of a mob at the freedom granted her by a Minnesota judge, I take to dreaming of her future. If Eliza lived 20 free years, surely not a nurse girl in Memphis. Memphis was burning. Memphis was killing freed Blacks in sweeping riots. Memphis had no place for her plans, the other side of emancipation. If Eliza lived 20 free years, might she have heard news of the child of my mistress I have taken care of from her birth to the present? I am so attached to the child that I would be willing to serve. Would some mother's instinct have shivered her bones when that child, now bride, married a titled Frenchman in Paris? Would that treasured child long for the touch on her veil of Eliza's mothering hand at the moment of her social ascent? Or would her sweet memory be of my old mammy down south? Give me the child until she is 7, and I will show you the woman. If Eliza lived for 20 free years, she might have. People survived to 50's old age. She would have overlapped a life with my grandmother, mere babe of the 1880s, squalling toward her own destiny in a world the other side of emancipation. If Eliza lived 20 free years, what past clung tightly to her? What plan dropped from her shoulders and was trod to dust? The child Eliza raised and was so attached to that she considered giving up her freedom, we discover years later in La Marquise d'Aulon, Norma Christmas remembers, a new poem planned for the expanded book that will follow Free Papers. Shiloh is the name of Richard Christmas' plantation, where he is recorded as master of 166 slaves. He's called the Colonel in this poem. The full title is La Marquise d'Aulon, née Norma Christmas, remembers at Chateau d'Aulon, Department of Drôme, near Marseille, southern France. Mais oui, I remember her. Shiloh is a long time ago. That Eliza, leaving me by myself, without a hug or tear, just gone, and no way to get her back. How could she leave me here by myself when I'm scared in the night, her humming a little tune, hush-a-bye, patting my back, don't you cry. Mama was no use, always sickly with one thing or another, but my Liza said, come on, let's us sing about the pretty little horses. You follow me and sing until you feel your heart rise. I learned to hate my desertion. That's what she'd say, until you feel your heart rise. And then I'd feel it, rising right up inside me. The Colonel don't seem to know about heart rising, and Mama's heart, well, it must just lie there inside her, beating a little now and then, or else she'd get up and see to me. But Liza said, sing, and I sang, until she up and disappeared. I learned to hate my desertion. But Shiloh was a long time ago. The Colonel, my father, said she had no right to leave me here by myself. It was wrong what she did. I know it was wrong because how could anybody be there humming and patting one minute and the next gone, without goodbye, without word, gone, just gone. People say you don't remember. Shiloh is a long time ago. But I remember my 7th birthday, and by the time I limped to my 8th, war was everywhere. The balls were done, my lace bedclothes in rags, and my father, the Colonel, said, you better not shed one more single tear over that nigger who went over the fence in that court in the north. Everybody we knew said it was a shame what happened to us. Better tighten the reins and keep away from the north. No care for your belongings up there. She looked me in the face and pushed away my money to come back. She was pushing you away too. Don't you ever forget that. You better not be crying the next time I lay eyes on your face for that traitor who left you when it was her duty, her place, I tell you, to stay with you and take care of you. I told you I knew her value. I offered that wench $10 whole to come back and do her duty. Everybody we knew cursed her for starting a mess in the papers that reached all the way down to us. Watch out for your property. Keep it close, they said. Shiftless, untrustworthy her, just like all the rest of them, born in them to get something for nothing. Got to be kept in line or they'll run off first chance they get. And she going on about her freedom and her free papers. like it was something we owed her. Not another tear, you hear me? Everybody we knew agreed with him, and they took me on like a duty. Straighten up, girl. I learned to hate her desertion. Now I master servants that will always be true. Mais oui, bien sûr. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Mary Easter. Patrick Cabello Hansel is the author of the poetry collections The Devouring Land, Main Street Rag, and Quitting Time, Atmosphere Press. He's published poems and prose in over 75 journals, including Cranog, Ilanat Review, Hawaii Pacific Review, Ash and Bones, River's Edge Lunch Ticket. Twice nominated for the Pushcart Prize, he has won awards from the Loft Literary Center and the Minnesota State Arts Board. His novella, Searching, was serialized in 33 issues of the Alley News. He's editor of the Phoenix, a Phillips, a literary journal by and for the most diverse community in Minneapolis. His website is posted in the chat. Patrick.
Thank you, Mimi, and thanks, folks, for coming. I was going to say coming out on this cold night, but for staying in and zooming in on the cold night. So I had 2 books come out in the space of a little less than a year, and the timing could not have been better. The first one came out 2019, and a lot of the readings and residencies I had set up were canceled in 2020, and so we postponed the second one till 2021 in February, and then the second or third or whatever wave we're on. So I'm going to read a little bit from both of these, and then I'm going to read some new stuff too. So the first book, Quitting Time, is an extended elegy to my father, who was born in 1912, and it's Veterans Day, so I'm going to read a poem first about his service in World War II. When my father was 5 years old, he grew up speaking only German in North Dakota. And when he went to kindergarten, the teacher threatened to hit him and any other German speakers because we were at war in World War I. And then later that came in handy with for his country when he fought in the war. He was actually in the Aleutian Islands when Pearl Harbor happened. They were closer to Japan than Hawaii was, and then served in England, France, and Germany in the war, and then in the occupation. He was a sergeant for an anti-aircraft battery. So this is one a poem about his service in Europe. It's called Falling. A man hung from his parachute like a seed softly whirligigging down, shouting, "Don't shoot, I surrender," in the tongue of the enemy, your first tongue. He had no way to reach his weapon, but the men under you did, and in a minute, though your voice was raised and your rank commanded obedience, it was the county fair in Shreveport, in Pembina, in New Ulm, in New Prague. Step right up, everyone wins a prize, lights flashing, the girls all giggles and bullets, and a ribbon for the man who hits the nose. Then silence. The head of the German boy on his chest, his body limp in his harness, gravity doing his work. The son of German cousins, perhaps the grandson of your grandfather's friend, spoiled blood over his uniform. Father, why did you tell me this story and not my brother's? Your memories are like your hands, worn, calloused, open. The boy's boots, newly shined, pulled him down to the earth he finally met as a shroud, a nothing, a home. Your men did not speak. They held their rifles across their chests as if bearing sick children. So my father was injured his back in a Jeep accident in England while he was still in the service, and he couldn't go back to farming. So he became a barber and settled in Austin, Minnesota, which is where I grew up. And but he had the greenest thumb of anybody I know. And when he retired, he just dug up every part of the lawn and planted all kinds of fruits and vegetables. So when I go out gardening, I always think about him. And today we went to pick the last of the raspberries. So this season is about over. So this is called I Feel Your Hands. I feel your hands turning the dirt in me, spade and long fork, compost and new seed. Everything you planted has sprouted full, but there is a scythe waiting for us, a time and half a time, the long beak of a hummingbird bent down to the nectar. The furrows made by our years grow row upon row, fruit upon fruit, the bend of sore knees, the slowing of sight. Who will be the first of your children to fall, Father, into whatever heaven your ashes now live in? I feel your hands waiting to welcome seeds that have not yet been loosed, these bones that creak, this earth you bequeathed us, fertile and full. And I just want to say a word about this book. I hope you can see that. The cover photo was taken by a dreamer, a young woman who crossed the border from Mexico when she was 8 months old, and now is about to be the first in her family to graduate from, sorry, Mary, not Carleton, but St. Olaf. So, and a lot of the poems in here are about immigration, but I'm going to read one. My wife and I were pastors of bilingual parishes in the Bronx and Philadelphia, and then in the Phillips neighborhood. And when we first started, we lived right next to the church, and across the street was a senior low-income residence that the church had built. And I would get up at 5 to meditate and pray and write. And being a senior home there, often the morning would be interrupted by the arrival of the fire rescue squad. So this is called Fire Engine at the Senior Home, 5 a.m. And it has an epigraph that's not credited that says, "It's not a fire, but a lack of rain in the heart." The siren shrieks around the corner, rises, then squeals down to nothing, a song you might squeeze out of a bird. Lights flurry round our windows, blue and red, like Christmas or a parade. It could be Mrs. Potter, her heart, her pills. It could be Will, married again at 87, or Lefty, his ghost arm swinging from his empty sleeve. I should go see. I should stay and pray. I should die and come back a spirit who sneaks through the cracks of walls and rescues. I watch 4 firefighters in heavy coats and pants carry the defibrillator and medicine bag to the front door as if bearing treasure home. They have forgotten their hats. They stand at the intercom and ring. They wait as the cop car arrives, then the county ambulance, their lights adding visual music to the trees. Their breath billows, then disappears. Night birds wheel into the trees, their time drawing to an end. At 5 a.m., even the dead, the long and the short, are hungry. Radios bounce with voices, lights eat at the vault branches. I am a poor witness. The daybirds begin to sing over the hum of the fire engine. The sky bruises towards blue, and whoever is wheeled out breathes in the cool air. She raises one thin hand from the white gurney, grateful, I hope, for at least one more ride. My mother, Monica, also served in World War II. She was a WAC, Women's Air Corps. And this poem is based on a photo where she's standing next to the barracks and she has this kind of mischievous look on her face. I think she snuck out to have a photograph. So she trained, she was an air traffic controller at the air base in Georgia. The only time she really left her hometown. And she trained pilots there, or a part of training, including French pilots that went back to bomb their own country to free them from the Nazis. You stand to the side outside the barracks, and it's a dialogue poem, imagining a dialogue with her. You stand in your WAC uniform, cap just a bit jaunty, your smile aching to discharge. You've seen the future from this air base in Georgia, and you want to get out. The German prisoners shouted and beat on the walls all night until the commander sent men down with sticks to quiet the faces. Soon after, the southern birds began to chirp. No one can know a woman who knows she is going back to live with her parents, work all day at Kresge's, come home and clean. No one touches the skin under the skin. The French pilots peed off the plane singing "Wee Wee" on the runway, their boyish faces ruddy in the round wind. We knew their deaths before they died. We wondered if any last words passed between them and their loved ones, waiting in the houses and towns for the freeing bombs their sons dropped. It was your first foray into you, into yourself, away from family, death only you could know. Day after day, you watched the pilots from your tower, called out their numbers with your radio, tried not to imagine them slowly drifting to earth in a silk parachute. The men who were due to ship out flirted the most. Their eyes seemed to leak sunshine. At dusk, they would fly their planes at treetop, as if by defying death in practice, they could defy it when it came blasting from a Krupp Flak 36, the deadliest tall gun the Nazis had. You came back to Austin in one piece, your uniform stashed away, the letters thrown in the trash. You took up your old job, counting the numbers every day, then walking home to eat supper, wash dishes, make the beds of the roomers, listen to grandma's rants, pray the rosary on your knees, and hope for a life outside your own. When the war was over, the equipment shipped out, and the paperwork filed, we disinfected the barracks, walls, floors, the slats that held the mattresses. We heard they were maybe going to convert it to a prison, a dormitory for migrant peach pickers, some kind of training camp for boys coming home with less than 2 arms or 2 eyes. Like Dad, you didn't talk much about the war. If you mourned the men you had known or missed your fellow WACs smoking cigarettes outside the barracks, you kept it hidden from your children. Like the Easter chickens, you kept quiet until the morning we received them. Birds dyed pastel blue, pink, green, and yellow. But the way you laughed when we saw the photo, the way you would pick it out of the album and hold it close to your face, meant someone else was standing there. Who were you posing for, Mother, on that winter day in Georgia? Your hair peeking out from under your cap, your painted lips ready to speak. I'm going to read just 2 poems from the new collection that I'm working on. It's called Breathing in Minneapolis. And the first poem is based on, or is after a poem by Jose Luis Peixoto. It's called, we live 2 blocks from Lake Street. It's called Unforgiven, I Wake to a Burning City, Minneapolis, May 28, 2020. Unforgiven, I wake to a burning city and walk tenderly on the limbs of ghosts I reach Lake Street as she scrambles to pick up scraps of her nightdress, glass, aluminum door frames, old wood, the stares of shop owners who've lost everything. No one breathes in my city today, the air burnt empty by nights of tear gas, rubber bullets, and slogans, 150 buildings set afire. I pick up pieces of junk, first with my eyes, then my fingers, useless prayers that must be done. No bells ring because time has been abandoned, and the child who walks alone inside me does not know where to find peace, or if he should. And then the last poem I'm going to read is an autumn poem. It was written last autumn, and this autumn's was different because of the drought. But I think it still applies. It's called Dying Back. I run the red and green push mower over the backyard one more time, less to cut what little grass remains than to chop the weed tree leaves browning up on the creeping Charlie and crabgrass. Tonight, we will cover the tomatoes and peppers in a quixotic hope of squeezing a few more gifts from October. Small green tomatoes hang from withering vines. The raspberry canes bend down, laden with almost fruit. In the front yard, our silver maple and ginkgo hold on to their green like visas against death, while the fiery maples across the street jettison their crimson fingers into this fierce wind. It will be useless to rake for days. Our leaves will fly to the neighbors to ours. Already the hostas and sunflowers are shedding their bones, and the flowers the bees delighted in all summer have shrunken to seed. All this is ordered by an ancient call, earth and her creatures losing what they love to die back into winter. Every fall they take the cup and drink it. Every autumn their goodbyes ravish our eyes with color. Maybe a tree weeps each leaf she has held as it drops down to rot away. I cannot know. But there is a welcome for each in the deep dark where roots labor among the blind beasts. It may be that each fallen leaf, each withered stalk, dancing and dying, is a tender of incense, a prayer flag, a knee bent to offer blessing to the world. Thank you.
Patrick Cabello, Hansel. Thank you very much. Patricia Barone. Pat recently published The Music of This Ruin with Taj Mahal Press, Cyberwit. Your Funny, Funny Face and The Scent of Water were published by Blue Light Press. New Rivers Press published a book of poetry, Handmade Paper, and a novella, The Wind. Her short stories have appeared in Wising Up Press, Peter Lang, Prentice Merrill, Plume, Penguin, American Writing, and West Wind Review. She has received a Loft McKnight Award of Distinction in Poetry, a Lake Superior Contemporary Writers Award for a short story, and a Minnesota State Arts Board Career Opportunity Grant for a workshop with the Irish poet Evan Boland. Pat. Pat, would you unmute, please?
This particular collection of poetry, The Music of This Ruin, was begun when I was in my 40s and had just become a nurse. First, I was an LPN, and then I studied to be an RN. But my whole career clinically was spent in nursing homes. My favorite population because I was really close with my grandmother. And when I started doing this particular book, of course it was poem by poem, I started thinking of the nursing home as if it were a neighborhood. And these were the homes, for some the last homes, for others just to visit, to be rehabilitated. I started thinking of each room as on a street, and everybody had their own story. And that's how I went about writing these poems. My first poem is Avenel's Last Questions. And it contains lots of sayings from my family, the Irish side of my family particularly. And I can hear my mother's voice and my grandmother's voice. Avenel's Last Questions. My body slides out from under me. My head rolls back. I would look at the stars if I could, but the ceiling is too dense. Why do we live in this box? Why does snow fall from the fan? And papers, are they invitations? Bills, are they sent from God? All these people, are they wedding guests? If this is a feast, I'll wear my best dress and dancing shoes. Where are they? Why do we wait in the anteroom? What's that knocking, knocking? Why don't they come in or we go out? If you're going to be going, go. Don't stand talking in the door's mouth. Nor beneath its lintel hide from lightning. Like being on a train, you're neither here nor there. Though I played nun in her bed sheets, mother bore me the usual way on a path to the mountain. Getting stuck in the valley for life, I believe, is my life sentence, not orbital punishment later. Mother told me, beware of a fool's purse. It's rusty by dawn, the bishop's mitre by stealth. Is God ready for my death? I'm waiting for the blandishment of light. My second poem is 4 Miles High on the Frozen Lake. Mavis, Gladstone's widow, though he isn't dead, lives alone, assisted living. She converses with the man he was, his photo 53, Life magazine. Her dinner on a tray, she doesn't dine with widows whose husbands, Winnebagos, died in Arizona. Grounded snowbirds. Good old days bring pain. When he's wheeled to her, the surface of his eyes seals his drowning like that frozen lake too calm. Irises stroke silvered. Does he see her or mountains in his widened pupils? After climbing the Tetons, he dreamed of plunging. A peregrine falcon's beak first dive past juttered ledges, fleeting sky. Maeve cries as his brother spoons some Jamesons. Today, marl blue, her Gladstone's eyes fog over. Crying. The activities lady discusses flightless birds, while Chloe sobs, "Ma, ma," till she's short of breath. Raining more, forevermore, in bushes, nurses' shoes, the freesia. Chloe cries, woo, her cheeks slick with water as salty as rain in the sea. Humidity shorts the door alarm. Gone off for escaping ghosts, Lars Olsen, dead at 92, paces the path to Fellowship Park so quickly we see only footprints in the flatted grass, his gnarly toes crushing leaves in the gutters. What can we do for Chloe? The new nurse asks. Call for a novel med? The old hand sniffs. She's failed them all. She's done with chemicals. It's not her brain, but in her heart, this crying. Chloe's chin trembles. Where's Daddy? Why don't he get me out? Finch's foster parent orphan nestlings, says the sweet bird lady. Beneath Chloe's lids, surging tears drop in her open mouth and splash the pebbles in the large wire cage. Red in summer, says the lady. In winter they resemble sparrows. Dun tails glisten with Chloe's tears. You have to hand it to her. Hilma, with her gooseberry eyes, she knows the warren of units at the home just isn't. Room 109, room 109. Get me now. Home, not hers, and she hollers, insistent. The vet with medicine, Ace Bird Supply, finds Hilma waiting. The palm warbler's chirping like a frog, you better check it. Reminded by the drooping Victoria fern of gardening, she dips her cup to water the caladium, angel's wings. She's determined. I'll live to be 100. In the aviary's back wall of straw, the nest pockets, filled with eggs, and fledglings fall like thistles as she pleads her orders. Please, damn keeper, put them back. Shotzi's party. At the Golden Oldies Jamboree, the women sang 6 verses of Don't Fence Me In. Little Audrey Jane, who's 93, hadn't touched her pureed ham and peas. I'm clean dead, she wailed. So to check it out, I felt her pulse. You're going like 60, I told her. If you have a pulse, you can't be dead. Takes a while, she said, for a body to shut down. Why not eat to pass the time, I said. Can't eat if I'm dead, she insisted. Does this look like heaven, I asked. No, but everyone looks dead to me. People get ideas. You can't change them, so I changed the scene. Look lively, I told the other nurses. Serve ice cream, I instructed the aides. We called off the doctors, let the parrot out, and brought in kids with therapeutic pets. The dog ran in circles round the day room. The cat went on a tear. Audrey shrieked, I'm dead. I didn't hold her held all. When Art raised his canes overhead, I said, party's over. Let's all go to bed. I might be dead, but I had fun, said Audrey. The next poem also has Shotzi. Nurses you strain to lift. For Kate Dayton. Nurse Shotzi, wrestling death with both kind arms, panicked. Her frailest grandma tottered out the door, wearing only her robe in a blizzard. How Eleanor didn't trip the exit alarm, no one knew for sure. But she wasn't in the trunk room, closet, armoire, or under the altar where they'd found her the time before. In came Claire with bare shorn head, closed cape, covered with snow, her habit of Umbrian brown on Ellie. Claire barefoot as always, narrow as her bones. St. Francis said, "Buongiorno, Mamma Clara." He'd heard of her coming from the feathered monk, a blackbird. Nurse Shotzi took Ellie, now lucid, to phone the son she forgot a decade past. Claire floated the stairs to her hospice nurse workshop. Vicky, director of nurses, arrived at the meeting sprayed with arpege. Shotzi followed, sneezing, with plates on a cart. Abbess Claire, Vicky said. "Have some pizza, diet root beer." Laughing, she added, "I'm starved as a shiftless Votech nurse." "You RNs click," retorted Shotzi, to dish the latest mess. "Who's slow or can't do Medicare?" Shotzi gossips too, but has no malice. She and her aides pad bed rails, heat bedpans, smooth braces, fasten ankle bells, and keep the fragile safe without restraint. "Hear my rule for quarreling nuns," Claire said. "Though nurses don't kneel like the lamb St. Francis trained to make us laugh, daughters, you strain to lift your heavy tasks, the hours you strap upon your wrists. You run from the sick to your pens and fear the state's inspectors who list your malpractice, forcing this endless writing. I say no. Cardinals are hard and over-anxious, but I've refused their gold. Donna Vicky, let your nurses speak. Dispense with grim portresses, grills, and double locks. We women have the power to change water into wine when we stay with souls who need us for their journeys." Claire sighed, pulled off her wimple, took a pinch of ashes from her purse to sprinkle on her silver hair. "I'm the servant of my sisters. I've consoled my nursing novices with tears. I've kissed their feet. In peace, these hospice nurses escort the dying from this world. Go with swift pace, unswerving light step. Be messengers." As I was reading that, I thought of the nurses and doctors who have taken us through this pandemic, and there is no end in sight right now. God bless them. I don't know what we'd do without them.
Brilliant. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Mimi.
Oh, what a lovely mix. So thank you, Patricia Barone. So audience, let's show our appreciation for the creative work and generous sharing of Mary Moore Easter, Patrick, Cabello, Hansel, and Patricia Barone. Please bring it up. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's not easy. You wonderful words. Paul Mattis, Zoom host, and my backup for tonight, Don Brunkwell. Many thanks. I'm Mimi Jennings, one of a team of poets who organize these monthly David Shove Memorial Midstream readings. For more about this series, see the Midstream series website. The link is in the chat. In a few days, you'll also find the YouTube link to this and earlier recordings. Poets also have posted links to their work. Do consider a purchase. And on December 9th, Richard Terrell, in the audience tonight, is welcoming Margaret Hasse, Ed Bockley, Kate McClam, and Michael Walsh, and once again be on Zoom. Thank you, dear audience, for your attention. Unmute now and add your congratulations or comments.